I'm calling this little fly the Squiggle butt, and that's because I don't know what else to call it. I've looked online, I've seen some jig heads with this kind of look to it, but I haven't really seen any flies. If you know what the name of this fly is, because I'm sure someone's tied it before, let me know in the comments. But for now, we're just calling it the Squiggle butt. So tie on to your hook, which is a size 10 Orvis straight eye streamer hook. And then you're gonna get, I think I have 4 Sili legs. These are pumpkin green, orange barred Nymph Sili legs. I know that's super specific, and I don't think it's very important on which Sili legs you use. I really like this color. It works for green, tan, browns, and I use it all the time in a lot of my flies. And then this crystal flash that I'm using is actually called Midge flash in root beer. It's actually smaller and thinner than normal crystal flash, and I just really liked how the color, I didn't choose a smaller material for any reason other than I like the color. So you could use normal crystal flash or some tan crystal flash that's a little bit thicker, and it would be fine. I'm just trying to build up a super movable tail, and what I've done with the strands of the Midge flash is I've cut them into halves and then folded them on top of one another, and just trying to make it so that they're somewhat in the middle of all those Sili legs. Since those legs weigh so much more than the flash does, they're not going to sit straight against gravity while the flash will rise up, but I promise when you're in the water, it just moves around and looks great. So then I'm using some pretty heavy dumbbell eyes. These are extra large dumbbell eyes. And the cool thing about this fly is that you can adjust the dumbbell eyes, or you can put a bead on there. I tie these with beads as well. But if you're trying to get really deep, like I'm fishing this, and actually if you stay tuned in this video, you'll see some footage. I'm fishing this mostly next to the Bat Bridge in Austin, Texas on Ladybird Lake, and I want to get really, really deep. And so I'm putting on some extra large lead dumbbell eyes so that I can get down in the water to where I think the fish are going to be. The next step is going to be to tie in some saddle hackle. A lot of people will measure this to make sure it's a certain width so that it's not too big or too small. I don't really do that. I don't tie flies that are so small that you have to measure, but some people, that's really important to them. And then we're going to use, again, that same flash, the Midge flash in root beer, and we're going to take, I think, 2 or 3 strands, cut it in half, and then tie that in to wrap the shank, which will give kind of like an underglow to the saddle hackle as you wrap it up the shank towards the back of the eyes. I think this just makes it look really, really nice. It makes it really flashy, and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about once I get to the next step in the fly. You can, usually it's a good idea to use the rotary function on your vise when doing something like this. When I tie these flies and then there's a camera in between me and the fly, I kind of just like black out and forget how to do things as ergonomically as I should be doing them. Instead, I'll just hand wrap it for some reason, but you can do you can use your vise, which this vise is a rotary vise, or you can hand wrap it, doesn't matter. But same thing when it comes to the saddle hackle, depends on how much of a hurry you're in. A lot of people too, like if you're tying a flashy bugger or a woolly bugger, I'd be wrapping it backwards. A lot of times people want to wrap it from front of the hook to back, and then they'll counter wrap wire around it. To me, it like didn't matter enough to add a step, so I just do it that way. But if you want to switch it up, add that little bit in the way you would with a woolly bugger. And then kind of like the last step is to take some golden brown dubbing. I think this is called ice golden brown, and you're just going to use that to cover up the color of your thread and to add one little last hot spot to the fly. And that's pretty much it. You're going to put some glue on there to make sure it's nice and strong. But I'll tell you what, this fly catches a lot of fish for me here in Central Texas, and I'm actually going to be experimenting with it in the ocean as well, because I think it's so fishy that it'll catch fish, probably in freshwater. and in saltwater. If you stay tuned, I will take you on my little two-man boat on Town Lake or Ladybird Lake in Austin, Texas, and where I'll be fishing this guy with a 3-weight rod next to the Bat Bridge. All right, so I've made it out to Ladybird Lake, and I usually start on the south side of the river and just fish each pier. I like to fish deep in the middle as well as hitting each point, but I didn't have any luck until I went all the way to the opposite side, kind of I guess you would say the north side of the river, and I was fishing pretty slowly, and I'm not actually using a 3-weight rod here. I am using a 5-weight rod with sinking line on it, and I hook into not my first fish of the day, but my first fish of this video. I've caught probably 4 other really small sunfish and bass on this fly throughout the day, but they were so small that I was too embarrassed to include them in this video. So this is one of several perch that I'll catch. And the fun thing about fishing this area is that in a couple of minutes, I don't think I catch it on the camera, but I think millions of bats end up coming out of that bridge, and that's pretty surreal to see. And then also anytime you catch a fish in front of a huge crowd, that's kind of fun too. But I'm fishing this. What I'll do when I know that it's shallow is I might start stripping after 1/1000 after that fly lands in the water, especially when I've got the sinking line on there, because it's going to continue to sink. And then but if it's in the middle, where it down here, if you're looking at your fish finder, in the middle of those piers, it might be anywhere between 18 and 25 feet deep, and so you're gonna have to wait 5, 10, 15 seconds for that fly to get down there. And with the big dumbbell eyes that I had on, I was waiting 12 seconds, but I didn't get any bites. This was the biggest fish I caught on the fly for the whole day, and not huge, but still, I'll take it. These flies, they're not very big. I mean, they might be 2.5, 3 inches long. I'm sure that you could tie them on a larger hook and just scale it upwards and possibly catch some bigger bass. But I don't really like throwing big heavy flies. I prefer to catch a lot of fish rather than the big bass you see people posting pictures of. Not ashamed of it. And then this is the final clip, but this is going to be another perch. You've got the city in the background. Such a surreal place to go fishing. One nice little bluegill. And if you liked this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, and feel free to let me know how I could make them better. Thanks for watching, guys.